If you could not tell by the thumbnail, my warmaster, that's right, my warmaster would obviously be Angron. No, I'm just kidding. What's up, everybody? Angron's calmest son here, aka Connor40K here, and I've been slowly trekking along the Horus Heresy route. I've also had some real deal stuff in my life kind of going on. I'm graduating soon. Kind of been preoccupying my time, but I'd rather be reading, Warhammer stuff than academic stuff that could further develop me as a person and my career, right? Because I'd rather read fictional stories where everyone is the worst person ever. But that aside, it got me thinking, right? I've been trucking along Mechanicum. I'm about to start Tales of Heresy, but there's one nagging thing in my mind. I think about the Emperor and I think I probably could have done a better job, and you're probably going to say in the comments, what are your qualifications? 1, I bench 355 pounds. 2, my mom thinks I'm extremely handsome. You get me? Are we on level right now? I probably could have made better decisions, but that in line with that thought, I was thinking, who would have been, the warmaster? Who would have been the perfect warmaster? Now, obviously, if we're going by the story, if we're going by, the Horus Heresy, obviously Horus was absolutely the best choice, maybe behind Sanguinius or even really tied with Guilliman. But I don't want to talk about logistically what should have happened. I want to talk about what I think could have happened. So I have 3 potential Primarchs I would probably put in that position, right? So obviously, honorable mention would have to be Angron, because then humanity would just suffer and just fade out of existence, and we wouldn't have Warhammer, and Chaos would have nothing to really feed off of in a dramatic way. And then Tyranids never come. Everything's done. Sorry. That was a joke. I'm just kidding. I'd say 3, if I was really thinking about it, if I was in the Emperor's shoes, who would I choose? Well, obviously, and I know someone's going to get in here and say, whoever's the Warmaster obviously is going to get corrupted by Chaos. I think a notable exception to that would probably be the Lion. I don't think he would be corrupted. I think that's his whole thing, is he's incorruptible. Loyalty is its own reward. You get the gist. Who would I make Warmaster? So let's start from the bottom, right? So number 3, I would honestly say Corvus Corax, which is funny because obviously, if you've been on the channel, if you've watched some of my videos, or even just kind of get my general vibe, I'm not a biggest fan of Bird Boy, all right? I don't like him very much. However, I do like what he stands for, and I do like that he's more of a, for the people, by the people type of guy, or as much as you can be in Warhammer. And I would be curious to see what kind of incremental changes he would make if he was overseeing humanity at the helm of the Great Crusade. It would be really interesting, and I think it would open up some different avenues that we wouldn't see. We'd see a lot more of the inner workings of the Imperium, at least the bureaucratic sides, if you will, which we obviously do see that if you read the books or are interested in any of the Inquisitor stuff, or even Mechanicus. Every function of the Imperium has at least 72 different, ministortums or like administratums. It's the whole, the whole government of the Imperium is so sporadic and different depending on what planet and just how overall you can contribute to humanity. But it would be really fun for me, at least hypothetically, to see Corvus step up to the plate and see how he would dismantle and maybe even reorganize and restructure humanity at the helm, right? Would he still be, extremely, xenophobic? Because if you've read Horus Rising, or, the first 3 books, Horus Rising, False God, Galaxy in Flames, Horus wasn't necessarily like giga-xenophobic. Like the Interrex, he was willing to be diplomatic and make some sort of concessions to work with them, because they were at one point, humanity, but then spliced with alien DNA or whatever. I can't really remember off the top of my head, but it was something like that. It would have been interesting. Would he still have done this? Where would he have done? I don't know. It would be really interesting. Number 2 of who I probably would pick as Warmaster would maybe have to be Sanguinius. And I only say this because I'm also not his biggest fan, but I also would be really curious to see what he would do, right? Sanguinius to me is really fascinating because he's a character you can really only admire in 30K, not in 40K. He's dead. But he's like a really good balance, and as much as I don't like him, I will give credit where credit is due. An extremely, really efficient balance of maintaining a figure that everyone really respects and admires, and still balancing that he is, human in a way, with the, the Black Rage, and then soon to be, or at this point that doesn't exist, the Red Thirst. And he's still dealing with it, much like Fulgrim is dealing with his Legion's issues with their genetic malfunctions, as is Magnus with the flesh change and all that stuff. I think it would be really interesting to see him sort of operate, how he would do things, if this would somehow affect his legacy. Would there still be traitors? How he gets corrupted by chaos, because he is not infallible. I think I've definitely seen some stuff where there was mentions of him being tempted by Khorne or Tzeentch. One of the chaos, it was probably Khorne. One of them definitely tempted him that would, we'll help you with the thirst. We'll get rid of this genetic mutation that is seen as undesirable, which obviously he was worried that if people found out, he's worried that his Legion would probably be purged or culled or something to that nature. And, to make a long story short, I'd like to see Hawkboy kind of do something cool. I think he would be a really, I know he would have been second place right behind Horus, but I'm saying, I wonder if he would have made the same mistakes or have been tempted so slowly, and I guess in Horus's case, I think he got rapidly corrupted, and I really do think, would it even take him getting stabbed with like a super cursed dagger from Nurgle to put him in a coma, and then the gods and Erebus sort of do this weird thing? Would he even need that? How would this sort of change, I'd like to see how he gets corrupted and who sides with who in this case. It would be really interesting. And I think at number 1, who I would most likely put for my Warmaster to lead the Great Crusade, would probably be the Lion, which is, I know that's kind of it's not that much of a hot take, but I'm thinking about it, like, realistically. It would be interesting. He doesn't trust anybody. The Emperor, maybe besides just the Emperor, he has so many layers to himself. He does not, he's more of a predator than he is as a human being. He only thinks reflexively, much like, an animal does. And it's very fascinating to me, because how could you corrupt the incorruptible? I'm sure they would find a way, but I would love to see it. I think it would be so astronomically cool if we had the Lion as the Warmaster, all right? And now here's a surprise. Here are my top 3 worst picks for Warmaster. Number 1, Angron. As I said before in the video, at the beginning of this, absolutely awful. No decisions being made, only murder. Humanity devolves. Someone probably kills him outright. Second choice for worst. Oh, this is interesting. It would probably be a tie between Mortarion and Perturabo. And I only say this because really, in my personal opinion, they're two sides of the same coin, except Perturabo can usually back up his shit, but if anyone here has watched like Rick and Morty, just because you're right all the time doesn't not make you an asshole. And that's kind of Perturabo's whole thing. Yeah, you're so smart and you definitely are efficient and you do some crazy stuff with what you can imagine and craft, but you're a goober. Like, you're a giga loser. I'm sorry to say it. You know, nobody likes a guy who's a know-it-all. Nobody, except other know-it-alls. And even then, they can't really tolerate it that long. So I could foresee him being Warmaster, making the worst decisions possible because nobody's stroking his ego enough. I'm saying enough because there's definitely going to be people doing it. He's going to get into constant fights. I don't even think Chaos would need to intervene. I just think the Imperium would collapse. Same with Mortarion. He would constantly be self-loathing and whining, and nothing would get done. And I don't know why he thought he should be Warmaster. I get why. He's a, oh, why didn't Dad choose me? I get it. I understand it, I know how to read sometimes. But both of them would be the worst. And then number one for worst pick for Warmaster is Conrad. Conrad would just make the Imperium run so much more inefficiently. Even though the Imperium's already extremely inefficient, it would just literally be if, like, Batman, if anyone here's read Batman, and then, what's his name? Azrael, I don't know his name, it's like Jean Saint something or whatever. If Batman was just turned up to like 20 and just evil and just, it would not be fun, and he would absolutely wreck the Imperium in ways I don't think any of the other Chaos Primarchs can even begin to imagine. So those are my picks. That's who I personally would want as Warmaster and who I wouldn't want as Warmaster. But I am curious, as always. I love to hear what you guys have to say. Who do you think is your Warmaster? Who would you fall in line behind? Let me know in the comments down below. And as always, I will see you all later.